Starting to watch Housewives in the 2020s can be a daunting feat. There are so many different franchises, and many of them have seasons numbering well into the teens, so it can be totally overwhelming to know where to start. It may seem rational to start with season 1, but oftentimes that's not really the best place to begin. So I'm going to go through each series and give my recommendations on the best entry points, as I refer to them. To make things easy, I'm going to put a timestamp in the description for each franchise, so if you're just looking for where to begin in a particular city, check that out. First off, I wanted to give some general tips. One helpful thing to do is to watch the reunion of the season before the one you begin watching. This will give you an express version of what's going on in terms of drama and alliances. Another thing to do is if you start to get bored with a franchise, then skip around a bit. For example, once OC starts getting stale around season 12, pop on over to Atlanta or New York. But let's get to the meat of the video. I'm going to go through each city chronologically in the order the series premiered. So we'll start, of course, with OC. So OC has more of a suburban vibe than any of the other franchises, so if you grew up or currently live in the suburbs, it may feel familiar in that sense. The thing I like most about OC is the constantly shifting social dynamics of the group. If you like shows like Big Brother or Survivor, you may really like OC. Allies become enemies only to become allies again. There's lots of drama on this franchise as well, and fights can get pretty nasty. It's one of the tamest in terms of glam and wealth. You won't see as much of the lavish trips and costumey outfits that you see on other franchises, though this seems to be ramping up a bit more with season 16. So OC was the first of the franchises, so the early seasons feel a bit dated. That's why my recommendation is to start with season 7. It feels modern, but you'll have plenty of good seasons ahead of you. This is also a bit of a clean slate for the show, making it a great place to start. We have the introduction of two important middle-era personalities in Heather Dubrow and Brooks Ayers. Heather elevates the show and changes up the whole vibe of the show with her confidence, wealth, and pretension. Brooks is the boyfriend of OG of the OC, Vicki Gunvalson, and provides some very messy drama. We also have housewives Tamra Barney and Gretchen Rossi, who had been feuding for seasons, decide to call a truce in the first episode, which majorly changes up the dynamics of the show. It's an incredible season and will absolutely get you hooked. My second recommendation, especially if you want to have full context for the social dynamics, is to start with season 4. This is the birth of the conflict style of Housewives as we know it, so it'll still feel like Housewives. There are two things, however, that prevent me from recommending it as number 1. First, it's dated. You'll notice the clothes and the camera quality come from a different era, which can be a bit distracting. Second, there's a truly egregious action that may turn you off from this series. I think it may be better to start at season 7 and then once you hit 12, go back and watch from season 4. These are the two best places to begin, but you could also choose to start at season 1, especially if you're interested in life for the affluent under Bush-era America pre-economic crash. It has its moments, but ultimately the only relevant housewife is Vicki with a splash of Gina Keogh and Lori Peterson. Another option is season 9, as it's a bit of a cast overhaul with the exits of Gretchen and Alexis and the introduction of Shannon Bedore. The only issue is that you only have a few good seasons before the show quality declines, and you may miss some context in the epic takedown of Tamra Judge, formerly Barney. The last place you can start OC is at season 16. As of the time I'm writing this, we're only a few episodes into the season, but it's a major revamp of the series and a return to form. So let's move on to New York, which is a favorite of many viewers. It has a long-standing cast with real relationships, which makes them feel more like friends than co-workers. It's also very funny, and they always deliver on cash trips. We also have the glamour of New York City, as well as the fast-paced life the ladies live, which overflows into the quick way the women are able to move on from conflict. The Real Housewives of New York has some of the series' most iconic moments and most talked about housewives. So my ultimate recommendation to start New York is with season 3, which I think is one of the best seasons of the series as a whole. You'll be grabbed right from the get-go and will be able to suss out any context you missed from before. We see the introduction of New York legend Sonia Morgan midway through this season and are privy to many of the iconic moments in the series run. My next recommendation is to start at the beginning with season 1. As it was the second city in the Housewives universe, it does suffer from similar growing pains as early OC, but in New York, all of the ladies are entertaining in their own right, even if we don't see them interact as much as we'd like to. All of the ladies last until at least season 4 as well, so they feel a bit more relevant than many of the early OC housewives. You also get to see the first iteration of the Countess Luann, who has many evolutions, as well as see Bethany before she was very rich. You can also start at season 5, as there was a huge casting overhaul heading into this season, so it's a fresh point to go into the show. If you really want a more modern option, you can begin with season 7, as it's the return of Bethany Frankel, and she's such a force that it changes the dynamic of the show. But there's just so many cast members that I feel like the experience might be a bit overwhelming. All right, let's move on down south to Atlanta, which is almost always the highest rated franchise. I think that's for a few reasons. First off, it's by far the funniest franchise. The women are absolutely hilarious, and most of them can take it as much as they can give it. Second, most of the women are also in some way associated with the entertainment industry, be they former models, actresses, or members of girl groups, which I think is super intriguing. It also has some of the most talked about moments, and many of the cast members throughout the years are top tier. So Atlanta isn't bad from the beginning, but if you really want to get hooked, start at season 3. It's the entrance of Phaedra Parks who brings a lot to the series, as well as Cynthia Bailey, who is a very long-running cast member. All of the ladies are at their best, and it's a truly fun and hilarious season. Another place to start is with season 5. It signals the entrance of Kenya Moore and Portia Williams, two of Atlanta's most iconic cast members. Kenya is such a force that she quickly becomes the focus of the season. It's truly peak Atlanta. The last place I recommend you start is from the beginning with season 1. It does suffer from poor camera quality, and Deshawn Snow and Lisa Wu aren't terribly relevant to the series, but it's still a great season. There's drama right from the first episode, and you get to better understand the dynamics between Sheree, Nene, and Kim. Alright, so on to Jersey. So New Jersey is all about the family drama. This leads to some deep-rooted drama that has higher stakes than we see on other franchises. It has historically been a bit grittier than other franchises, with storylines about people going to jail or physical violence. The men also participate a bit more in Jersey than we see in other cities. Plus, it's essentially the Teresa show, and she almost always delivers. My first recommendation to start New Jersey is from season 1. You'll get to see early Teresa and witness the infamous table flip. It's a fun season, but it's a bit more documentary style than its modern predecessors. It's also a really short season, so it's easy to get through. Be sure to watch the director's cut of The Last Supper. My next recommendation is to start with season 8. This was a bit of a renaissance for the series and began the true shift away from the family drama that dominated the early days of Jersey. We have the introduction of housewife Margaret Josephs, who really breathes new life into the franchise. You can also start with the next season, 9, which introduces the cast that lives on to this day. The last place to start is with season 3, which cements Jersey as the Teresa show. We have the introduction of Melissa Gorga, Teresa's sister-in-law, as well as Kathy Wakili, Teresa's cousin, both of whom with she has a rocky relationship. It begins the shift away from the Manzo-centric storylines we see early on. So the next entry into the Housewives universe was DC. This only lasted 1 season, so obviously you have to start there. If you're curious about it, I have a whole video speculating on what could have been had it not been canceled, so check that out. It also tells the story of its cancellation. I'll link it below for you. If you want to watch DC, you can watch it on Hayu, which if you live in the US like I do, you'll need a VPN for, but it's an amazing streaming service. It has all of the Housewives shows, so totally worth the investment, especially if you want to watch DC. All right, let's move on to Beverly Hills. So Beverly Hills is the most glamorous franchise. Most of them are incredibly wealthy, or at least put on airs that they are. Glam was invented on Beverly Hills, something we've seen spill over onto all of the other franchises. We've had several Beverly Hills housewives who were famous before they started on the show, as with Lisa Rinna, Denise Richards, Eileen Davison, and Kim and Kyle Richards. We've also had some famous adjacent people like Camille Grammer, former wife of actor Kelsey Grammer, as well as Teddy Mellencamp, daughter of John Cougar Mellencamp. So the absolute best place to begin Beverly Hills is with season 1. As it was a later entry into the Housewives universe, both the producers and the cast knew what we as viewers wanted, and they really delivered. We have a great cast, an iconic villain, and some of the most memorable moments of the franchise in season 1, and it stays good for many seasons. If you're dead set on starting later, I guess you can begin with season 5, as it's a bit of a new era. We've lost many of the OGs and have the introduction of actresses Lisa Rinna and Eileen Davison. The problem with starting here is that you're missing out on Beverly Hills at its best, and you only have 1 season before you enter the dark ages. Really just start with season 1. Alright, so on to Miami. So Miami is the hottest, most colorful franchise. It has a Latin flair and has a decadent, wealthy air to it. It has a combination of kookiness and high-flying drama that keeps viewers enthralled. I think the best place to start Miami is with season 2. The first season was meant to be a show about dinner parties or something, so it's a bit odd. We also have a total cast revamp going into season 2, and they did a fabulous job casting the new girls. We have great drama and a total brawl. It's great TV. The second place to start is with season 4. After a years-long hiatus, the series was rebooted with a very fresh feel. Even though we have some veteran housewives, the backstory for people with complicated lives like Alexia is explained very well. They know people will have either not watched or forgotten those earlier seasons, so it's a fresh place to begin. Lastly, you can go back and start at season 1. You have veterans such as Alexia, Adriana, and Marisol, plus any time spent with Mama Elsa is not wasted. Okay, so on to Potomac. So Potomac has swiftly risen to favorite status for many viewers, and I'd say it's the best series all around. It has a long-standing cast with 4 out of 6 OG housewives still on the show as of season 6. The ladies are true pros and can generally keep drama and storylines moving, though things come to a bit of a standstill when a pretty major event happens in season 5. It's also really funny and has a fantastic Cold War dynamic between the series' true alpha leads and Karen Huger and Giselle Bryant. It has the suburban vibes of OC, but feels a bit classier. I say begin at the start with season 1. It was initially slated to focus on the Jack and Jill organization, about women coming into high status positions in Potomac society before being repackaged as a Housewives franchise. So there is heavy discussions about etiquette. This bothers some people, but I think it makes the series feel a bit more fun and lighthearted. Plus, you have Queen Katie in season 1. The other place to begin is with season 2. This was always shot as a housewife show, so it'll feel really familiar. You also have the introduction of Monique Samuels, who brought a high level of wealth to the show. She's a complicated woman, but makes for compelling television. So on to Dallas. I think Dallas will appeal to you most if you're from Texas. It's probably the trashiest of all the franchises, but if you like potty humor, you may enjoy it. There is a genuine long-term friendship in Brandy and Stephanie, which many viewers enjoy watching. One of the cast members' mothers, Mama D, is also the prototypical Dallas old money woman, though she's a bit of a monster. It's not my favorite of the shows, but it's worth a watch. So I think season 2 is the best place to start. As with Potomac, the series was initially supposed to focus on charity work in the Dallas area. Unlike with Potomac, I think this makes the show almost unbearable, and I don't particularly like any of the OG Dallas girls. Season 2 marks the entrance of Deandra Simmons and Cameron Westcott. Both of these women are characters, for better or worse, and are members of prominent Dallas families. Cameron ends up going off the deep end eventually, but she's a fun character in her early seasons. You can also start at season 1, especially if you want some context on the dynamics between and background of the OGs. It's a short season, so it's not too difficult to get through. Leanne brings the drama, so it's still a decent watch. So on to Salt Lake City, which is the latest addition into the Housewives universe, and boy does it deliver. The women are all stars and know what the viewers want. I'm entertained by every single one of the ladies. It has the best of other shows in that we get great outfits, messy drama, and deep friendships, but what really sets it apart is its focus on religion. Obviously, being in the Mormon capital of the world, there is a great focus on the LDS Church, both from those still in it and those who have left and feel some type of way about it. But we also get a peek into Islam via Jen Shah. The true highlight, however, is with Mary Cosby, the pastor at a Pentecostal church rumored to be a cult. It also has the most stunning wintry backdrops. So obviously start at season 1 for Salt Lake City. It's really great from the start. These ladies really know what they're doing right from the jump, and you'll be compelled all the way through. The stakes are raised exponentially in season 2, but watch season 1 so that you can truly appreciate the payoff. Also, don't worry if you can't tell Meredith and Lisa apart. You soon will. So those are my thoughts on where to start each franchise. I think the best franchises to start with are Beverly Hills, as it's good from the start and has some familiar faces and names. Another good option is to start with Salt Lake City, as it's new and there's not too many seasons to catch up on. Last, I'd say start with Potomac, as it has a great cast, not too many seasons to catch up on, and remains steady throughout. So that wraps things up for this video. Please subscribe. It makes me so happy to know others are watching my videos. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!